Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space. It's me, Tanhany Aetheral Space, and this is Darnell Aetheral Space. How are
It's
you?
me. Darnell. I'm good. I'm saying this really fast for when you listen when you're editing. Don't forget to cut the video so it matches with the audio.
I do this every time now, I don't need you to tell me.
Alright, well. Anyway, let's just jump right back in.
This guy's in a
You
hurry
ready?
because he really wants to watch Five Nights at Freddy's. He's so excited.
And? Are you gonna come? Hmm?
I'm sorry, am I gonna what?
Are you gonna come watch Five Nights at Freddy's?
Oh.
This guy's so frazzled because I said I was daddy one time.
It was, to be fair, it was like 2 minutes ago.
We're not going to give any further context to that, but we're just going to jump into
Okay,
it.
it's it.
The angel was coming to kill him. Angel. There was no other word David Devine could find to describe the young man who torn the city down. David Devine is a great name, but it's also the worst name. He was ethereal, powerful, deep, and beautiful. In David's Superbian youth, the angels in parables, the ones who'd punished sinners and obliterated the unworthy, were much the same. His black leather jacket billowed in the wind behind him, and his short, white blonde hair was soaked in sweat. He was zipping through the ravaged streets of Bone Heaven, Holy Driver buzzing beneath him as he pushed it forward. So I did have a question about this, actually.
Yeah.
If you'll forgive me interrupting so early. The Final Church is a religion, but it's also a country. So I assume
It's a
there are
theocracy,
people in
yeah.
there are people in the Supremacists and the UAP who worship it. Like, how does that work? If you identify as a Superbian, would you be more of a Final Church citizen, or like what? How does
Well,
that
it depends
exactly?
if you're like actually a citizen. You would probably be. Some people have like sort of like a general sort of Y sort of religion, and then in the Final Church you'll get more who like identify with a specific sect usually.
So is this guy from the Final Church, or is he from the
Originally, he was from the
Supremacy?
Final Church.
Okay, I gotcha. His black leather jacket billowed in the wind behind him, and his short white blonde hair was soaked in sweat. He was zipping through the ravaged streets of Bone Heaven, Holy Driver buzzing beneath him as he pushed it forward. Come on. Holy Driver?
Yeah.
Like the band Holy Diver, like the stand Holy Diver?
So like when
But Holy Driver. The motorcycle was strangely simple in its geometry, a collection of black shapes snapped together like a toy, without any true trace of detail. The golden wheels left a similarly golden trail where they made contact with the ground. That way, at least, nobody could follow him on foot. That still wasn't much help. After all, angels could fly. David passed under a massive archway, and in that moment he sensed death. He snapped his head up, and he saw there, clinging to the underside of the arch like some kind of insect, the angel. His eyes blazed blue in the darkness, twin pinpricks of unearthly light. David barely even had time to register what was happening before the angel started firing. Pure animal instinct saved his life. As the street erupted around him, spears of blue light decimating whatever they came in contact with. David weaved through the description on Holy...
Sorry, it didn't go Matt
Sorry.
Fiction.
No, you're good. Sorry. There's like a thing on my like bottom lip, like I got a little bump and it hurts really bad.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. My like teeth brushed against it. He weaved through the destruction on Holy Driver. His heart was thumping in his chest, so fiercely that he could feel the vibrations at his skull. Swerving to avoid a massive chunk of rubble, he instead used it as a ramp, propelling himself up to the rooftops. The moment he landed, he swung into a drift, skidding to a halt atop an old temple. Panting for breath, he stared at the cloud of dust and smoke pouring out from the street. His hands squeezed the handlebars. Damn it, David thought, gritting his teeth. Why, damn it! Don't lose your nerve now! You cast aside all that bullshit, right? He's not an angel, he's just a man! He's not so strong, and you're not that weak! He'd broken away from the Superbian sect when he'd escaped the cage inside his mind and started living for himself. He wasn't a believer on horseback anymore. He rode only for himself now, and he traded his horse for a hog. Oh my god. Swallowing, he twisted the throttle, Holy Driver roaring in response. The second the angel showed himself, David would charge right at him and run him down. He breathed in, and he breathed out. Gemini shotgun. David threw himself down to the ground, and as soon as he did, a chunk of rubble zoomed past from behind him at speeds that would have shattered his spine. Before he could register what was going on, he was struck, a vicious kick slamming into his body and sending him flying into a neighboring building. Dust flew in every direction as the sandstone wall collapsed, and he landed in a crater at the building's heart. Is this going to be like he traveled so long as just Aether, that he's like mastered Aether? He is the god of Aether. Angel Aether user. For a moment, unconsciousness clawed at David's mind, but he just about managed to claw himself back. What had happened? The angel just suddenly appeared behind him for that attack. He was certain he hadn't left room for the guy to sneak around, so how? Some kind of ability? Invisibility? No. Teleportation? As David picked himself up off the ground, the angel appeared next to him in another flash of blue aether. David immediately leapt to the side, avoiding another flurry of shots, and this time he lunged back in for the attack. Holy Driver manifested in his grip, and David swung the motorcycle as a mighty club right at the angel's head. He caught it in one hand. Golden steam rose up from the front wheel of Holy Driver as it ground against the angel's palm. Even so, no matter how hard David pushed, how fast the wheel went, the angel didn't falter in the slightest. He just continued to stare at David with those calm, blue eyes. But still, that was fine too. Crack! Those blue eyes flicked over to the hand holding Holy Driver, and an instant later that hand popped in a flood of gore. Immediately, the angel vanished into Aether again, avoiding David's follow-up swing. It took only for a second. I assume only a second.
Yeah.
It took only a second for him to appear once more, standing in the hole in the wall, looking at his missing hand. The stump was gushing blood, and white bone was protruding from the mess, but the angel's face remained as calm as ever. His eyes scanned it up and down, unimpressed. Was he like David, then? A healer? Yes, Holy Driver was a healing ability. Anything that came in contact with Holy Driver's wheels or the golden trail it left would have their natural regeneration boosted significantly. In fights like this, why would you want the part that you would run people over with to heal, though? What a fool. In fights like this, though, David could enhance that regeneration further, past what the human body could actually handle, causing it to rupture and sustain damage. Poisons were just medicines in the wrong doses, after all. The angel's missing hand vanished into fizzling aether, leaving a strange blue border where his arm terminated. David understood. It wasn't that this guy could heal, but that he could banish his injuries. His wounds wouldn't get any worse, and he wouldn't bleed out. So any non-fatal injury was basically meaningless. Still, he'd created a distraction, if nothing else. David slammed Holy Driver back onto the ground and began riding it once more, speeding out of the building and back onto the ruined streets. He didn't see the angel come after him, but he saw a flash of blue shine out of the windows of the house for a second. The angel's power involved phasing parts of his body in and out of existence. When done to a single part, he could halt the progression of an injury. Instead of teleporting like David had assumed, was the angel recording his entire body, turning himself into aether and moving it with consciousness alone? Recording your whole body on a dime like that. David shuddered. This shit wasn't fair. As expected, the angel appeared in front of David once more, firing 2 shots directly at him. He flipped in the air, deflecting the attacks with the underside of Holy see. Well. Cat's out of the bag now. Underside of Holy Driver. Chunks of molten metal ricocheting and lodging in the ground. Landing on the other side of the angel, David whipped his hand to his side and pulled free his sawed-off shotgun, aiming it at his adversary. That was when he realized he'd almost died a third time that day. He whirled around, swinging the shotgun in the air, and barely managed to deflect a shot that had been aimed at the back of his head. Even if his shotgun was reduced to scrap, though, David's attention was focused on the absurd sight before him. Floating there, just a few meters away, was a disembodied hand. The angel's hand, pointing at David with a single smoking finger, just like Skipper. It wasn't just that the angel could record his body parts. He could manifest them away from the rest of his body and continue to use them. What the hell was this?
Boogie D. Clown?
David ducked under a second shot, but even as he did so, he knew it was a mistake. Even if he avoided the attack from the angel's disembodied arm, he'd opened himself up to the main body. As the hand vanished, a shadow fell upon him from behind. He saw it all, out of the corner of his eye, his death approaching as if in slow motion. The angel raising his returned hand up. The angel curling it into a deadly fist. The angel bringing it down like a gavel. And then, miraculously, the angel stopping. An arrow lanced out of the darkness of a nearby alley, striking the angel's hand and impaling it through the palm. The cogitant looked down at the protruding projectile for a moment, seemingly confused, and then flew upwards to avoid a second volley. You! Oh, sorry. You! Came a I can't do a deep voice. You! Came a deep voice from the alleyway. Man with the bike. A temporary truce. Yes? The speaker... That's my best Billy
I was
Butcher.
going to say diabolical.
The speaker emerged, a burly umbrant clad in furs, bow and arrow clutched in his hands, tiny paleo-beast carcasses hanging from his belt. Even as he spoke to David, his gaze was fixed on the young man in the sky. Probably a wise decision. David nodded, catching his breath after that near-death experience. Yeah, truce. This hunter guy was clearly dangerous, too. But right now the angel was the true terror on the field. They could worry about killing each other once he was dealt with. It's good to know others are of sound mind as well. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm so sorry. New voice. It's good to know others are of sound mind as well, came a soft voice from a nearby rooftop. I trust there's room for another in this alliance? A middle-aged man in a black raincoat stepped into view. His face was long and sallow, with a grey mustache drooping from his lips. A large, sharp shovel was clutched in his grip. A grave digger? He certainly gave off the impression. There was no need to answer. Just from looking at the angel above, one would know it would require all hands on deck. That was why nobody bothered saying anything when the fourth contestant arrived. A dreadlocked woman in a black leotard, her skin lined with strange seams. As David looked at her, her right arm disassembled before his eyes, crumbling into countless tiny jigsaw pieces that floated in the air around her, each under her individual control. King Nothing? Blood oozed from the backside of each. Oh, sorry, I got lost from the... Where? Sorry. Can you highlight? You did
David broke his gaze.
God damn it. David broke his gaze away from the gruesome sight, returning his attention to the angel above. The young man still hadn't moved, his blue gaze instead flicking between each of the four combatants below. Analytical eyes. That was good. That was a good sign. It meant he wasn't strong enough that he could defeat them all without effort. He did have to think about it. If you can give me time, the gravedigger said calmly, I can get rid of him. David needed to hear no more. He twisted the throttle of Holy Driver again, rushing down the street, leaving a golden trail behind him. See, this is already fucked, though, because if you need to have, like, 4 dudes to take down one guy in the inner melee, you're not going to become the next Supreme, bro. Just quit the Dawn contest, like, honestly.
Little bro.
David needed to hear... Get him down to the ground! He roared as he passed the hunter and the jigsaw woman. For 3 people who had never met before, their teamwork was fairly commendable. The hunter let loose another shower of arrows, forcing the angel to zip through the air, disappearing and reappearing to avoid them. As he remanifested out of the projectile's range, however, he was met by another threat. A cannonball, formed from countless bloody jigsaw pieces, slammed into him from above, spiking him down into the street, right in David's path. Couldn't you detect Dragon mid-Gemini world with an Aether ping?
Probably, yeah.
David accelerated, a roar of exertion pouring from his throat, aiming to run right over the angel and fill him with Holy Driver's over-regeneration. The world became a blur around him, made vague by sheer speed. He could do this. He could become supreme. He could become someone. He could matter. He could... The cloud of dust cleared slightly, and David saw it. David saw the blue eye of the angel staring right at him, its pupil as tranquil as a stagnant lake. Just looking at that eye, the idea that this attack would be successful became a bad joke. But it was already far too late. The angel had spoken, after all. Gemini Dominion. David Devine was no longer in bone heaven. All around him, stretching off past the horizon, was white, a pale void as far as he could see. His first thought was that he had died, and that this was the world of why. It certainly matched some of the scripture, endless and pure. But no, oh fuck. I realize what he did.
What did he do?
I think he put... Did he put him in his archive?
Let's keep going.
Alright, let's see if I'm right. There was structure to this place once the eyes adjusted. White mixtures between pillars and bookcases. Didn't he have like bookcases and files? Punctuating the white void and white brickwork beneath his feet. It was like an impossibly clean temple. Almost unfinished. Does that mean he has enough Aether to record over the reinforced sky? David held on the Holy Driver for dead life.
Dear life, sorry.
Dear life, hands trembling against the handlebars. He was alone here. The other 3 contestants were gone. He'd been isolated. Was this one of the angel's abilities, Gemini Dominion? It had transported him here. Ahem, someone said from behind him. David spun Holy Driver around to face the new threat, his face nearly as pale as his surroundings. There, atop a hill of discarded white books, sat a young boy. He had silver hair and blue eyes like the angel, and he was leafing through a hefty tome. Yes, he looked just like the angel, only much younger. A child version. Why? The boy glanced up at David. Did we ever get a reason for why he's, like, younger than Dragon?
In itself.
Is it just... Oh, it's his inner child? I thought it was just because he made it when he was a little boy. The boy glanced up at David. You're gonna want to dodge that, he said, voice bored. David furrowed his brow. Dodge what? The angel's fist slammed into his face from the right, sending David and his bike flying off into the distance. He smashed through 1, 2, 3 of those pillars, bricks and books raining down from each. David twisted in the air, slinging his leg back over Holy Driver, but another punch came. Another and another and another, each blow administered by the master of this domain, sent David flying in another direction. He was being sent flying back and forth through this realm like a pinball, so quickly that it took all he had just to partially block the attacks. You mentioned before when you record something, it's like in the air next to you.
Yeah.
So did he have to like put him inside his own brain? Or is it because Aether carries your consciousness that it can do this?
Yeah. Aether is a medium for information.
Gotcha. After 6 or so blows, he finally landed on another floating platform, his entire body aching with pain. Hurriedly, David went to pick himself up, but it didn't matter how much he hurried. The angel was waiting for him again, after all. With a flash of blue, the cogitant appeared, and immediately raised his leg up and brought it down again like a sledgehammer, aiming directly for David's head. This went beyond the speed he'd seen earlier. This Gemini Dominion was clearly a space David had been transported to, but there was more to it than just a change of location. Within this realm, the angel was capable of what looked like true and instantaneous teleportation. There was no escaping him. Oh, this shit really wasn't fair. David lifted up Holy Driver to shield himself, and the angel's leg tore right through it, splitting the armament in half. It wasn't a useless gesture, though. David had no way of knowing when he raised the bike, but the second he'd bought by doing so had just saved his life. Blue Aether flickered, and the two of them returned to reality. They weren't in the same spot as when they disappeared. Instead, David and the angel appeared above the street in the air, quickly falling back down to the ground. It wasn't such a height that a fall would be fatal, but David already knew he wouldn't last much longer if things continued. Why not surrender then, David? Get out of here.
Because he wants to win.
Well, with Holy Driver destroyed, he'd lost his mobility. He'd be easy pickings for the angel. So how does repairing something like that work again? Because I know Ruth's suits get broken and reformed. Is it just like a time thing?
It depends on... Because Ruth is sort of halfway between ability and armament here, basically, because it's still her ability.
But, like, when something's destroyed, that's
an
like
ordinary
an
armament, when it's broke, usually. Like, even if it has the ability, it's like, it's no longer in the same shape, it might not be as good.
But with an ability, like, his Holy Driver would reform, like, would he have to consciously do it, or with time?
It would take time.
Okay. With Holy Driver destroyed, he'd lost his mobility. He'd be easy pickings for the angel. His only chance was now, in this moment, where his adversary was distracted. As he fell, David wielded half of Holy Driver in each hand, and swiped at the angel's head from both directions, golden wheels spinning. To block this attack without sustaining damage like last time, the angel would have to grab David by both wrists, but that was something he could no longer do. One of his hands was missing, and the other had been impaled. Even if he could stop one wheel, the other would still get him. What if he raises his leg and kicks it away?
Well, there's two.
Fucking die! David screamed. Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
There's two.
David screamed, voice breaking. Yeah, so block with one arm and then, like, high kick your leg up for the other. As he brought the wheels in. And the angel grabbed him by the wrists. David blinked. Huh? Both of the angel's hands were back, gripping David's hands like twin vices. There weren't even any traces of the injuries he'd sustained. It was inconceivable. It was impossible. It was so fucking unfair. Crunch! Oh my god, he's got that pan in him, doesn't he? He's got that pan-assia. As the angel squeezed, David felt his wrist snap, and the bisected halves of Holy Driver slipped from his grasp, falling to the streets below. David struggled against the cogitant's grip, panic quickly overriding strategy, kicking and writhing desperately to escape. But there was no escape. There were only the merciless eyes of the angel drilling into his own. And then the headbutt. It slammed into David's face, instantly breaking his nose, nausea and confusion drifting through his thoughts as his brain danced through his skull. Even the pain seemed vague, as the angel crashed its aether-infused head into David's. Hang on, I gotta fix your its. There you go. Again and again and again. Smack! He could see the past. He could see it, like his brain had been put on rewind. He was 29, escaping from the Superbian compound in the dead of night, riding into the horizon on Holy Driver. He was gonna make it crack! He was 20 on his knees, praying to Y with the rest. Stained glass shone its refracted light upon him, and the hymns echoed through the cathedral. What a peaceful place, what a peaceful place, what crunch! He was 13 and he had zit. Jesus Christ, what the fuck did he just do to him?
Headbutts.
Was this just the nature of physical damage destroying his brain, or did he use some sort of relive all your trauma Gemini?
It was the brain damage.
Jesus Christ. That's so fucked, dude. The remaining 3 opponents watched with muted horror as Dragon Hadrian slammed his head into his opponents one last time, and David Divine's skull burst from the pressure, spraying blood and brain matter all over Dragon's face. His face was impassive. He released his grips on David's wrists, and the man's limp body fell to the ground. His head above the jaw was completely gone. The woman with the dreadlocks, her mouth agape, took a single step back. The fear was involuntary and inevitable. Dragon Hadrian wiped the gore from his lips with a thumb, and those bright blue eyes flicked over to regard the 3 below. 1, he said. Oh, man.
He's so menacing.
He's so evil now. David Divine honestly should have surrendered. That was kind of a fucked up way to write his death, though. I'm not gonna lie. Why'd you do him like that? He wasn't even, like, evil. He was just a guy. This wasn't the arc villain dying. This was just a guy who wanted to believe in himself and got away from it like a cult.
Sometimes it ends up like that.
The last one, I think, is the one that was, like, just a step far, where he's like, he was 13 and... I don't know, that just made me sad. That's fucked up, man. Anyway, we're not here to talk about what's wrong with your brain.
R.I.P. David Divine.
Rest in peace, David Divine. We're here to
Please
read
post
some
your favourite
theory.
David Divine moments in the Discord.
We only have one question for you.
Okay.
This
Court
is...
Simpsons all of a sudden.
What's the biggest departure from the baseline human body plan among known skirrents? Are there any hexapodal or arachnid skirrents, or ones with wings large enough for them to fly, etc.?
Well, there's ones with wings, yeah. You got like fat, fleshy wings. You got the classic sort of angelic, feathery wings. You got stuff like that. I would say probably one of the biggest departures is the Hatsune Miku skirrent we saw.
Which is?
Where it's basically like almost like a seahorse, basically, in a little tank. There's very little resemblance to a human.
Ooh. Also, Anson Deldeaway.
Oh, yeah.
I can only see him as the Cart Titan.
I would say he's perhaps more fucked up than the Cart Titan in terms of proportions.
Yeah. It's like, Jesus Christ. Well, because not only is it, like, fucked up, but how did they survive that long? Like, was it just a distant, unlucky throwback, or are there some real freaks in the galaxy? You know what I mean?
There's some proper freaks. There's some fucking disgusting creatures.
Like, how the fuck did even little seahorse thing come to be? Was that...
They lived in tanks.
I also wonder if there's ever been a case, right? And I hope this doesn't get too weird into, like, eugenics territory, because it's always weird talking about the gene stuff, where, like, 2 different kinds of skirrents got together, and then their genes, like, crossed in a real bad way and made, like, a real fucked up thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, man. That's a shame. Alright, well, I think we got our answer with that, then. Do you have any other lore you'd want to disclose off the top of your head?
Not really, unfortunately. By the way, grabs your wrists.
You mentioned a compound with the Superbians. I'd be curious to hear more about at some point.
Well, yeah, that's just basically like where he lived on a planet run by Superbians.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Alright, well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.